Aloha and welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Lynette Cruz. I'm your host. Thank you for joining us today. We have a full house, actually probably the biggest group we've had ever, and it's awesome. So I'm really pleased to have as my guests today these fabulous folks here. I'm not even going to introduce them because they can introduce themselves, and then I'll tell you why we're all gathered together. We'll start here with Keanu.
Hello, I'm Keanu, political scientist. My research focuses on Hawaii's legal and political history.
Aloha, mai kako. I'm
Aloha.
Uluhani Waiale'ale from Molokai, and I currently teach Papa Mala'o and Ekahi at Kulakaiapuni o Kualapu'u.
Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Chris Santamaru. I'm a teacher at Kaneohe Elementary School.
Aloha, Wally Campbell. I also work at Kaneohe Elementary School. I'm a cultural practitioner and a custodian.
So we're going to talk first with these three people out here because they're here for a particular reason. And I wanted you to share how it is that, I read something really exciting and interesting on Facebook. And it had to do with the Hawaii State Teachers Association sending representatives to the National Education Association convention in Boston, I think in July. Because I
Yes.
think it was July 4th, that date, when you all came out with information that was published, and it was awesome. So, before we even move on to anything else, let's talk a little bit about that. What were you guys doing there? How'd you get there? What is it?
Want me to go? Okay, so the National Education Association is a membership of about 3.2 million teachers around the country. And once a year they convene to have what they call a representative assembly, where they convene and vote on action items that they want the National Association to be working on for the upcoming year. So Uluhani and myself were elected representatives for the state of Hawaii. And so we went with, I think, about like 100 other folks from Hawaii to represent our state at the assembly. Prior to going, I'd say there were numerous conversations that Uluhani, myself, and some other folks had been having about what sort of action items we might want our National Association to take up for the upcoming year.
And you also consulted with Amy Peruso?
I did. She's our state secretary treasurer, and she's well-versed in all sorts of academia within the state of Hawaii. So, all started, I'd say, in 2016. I'm only been in Hawaii, I'd say, 3.5 years at that point in time. So for myself, it was very new to learning the politics of Hawaii. And so I had the fortune of meeting Wally, who works with me at the school, and we had the opportunity to kind of connect after the 2016 national election, and start talking politics and what it meant for the country, what it meant for Hawaii. And so through those conversations, I started learning more about the various, I'd say, thoughts about the status of the Hawaiian Kingdom. And so when we had the opportunity to sort of go and put something forth to the national stage, we kind of felt like this was an opportunity to really try to raise awareness about the state of the Hawaiian Kingdom.
Among teachers?
Yes, yes. So, you want to talk at all about?
Well, word that information, how'd you come to it? I mean, what role did Wally play in all of that?
You want to talk at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
All I can say is that, Chris, being fresh off the boat, he was, curious about, politics in Hawaii, and, asked about, various Hawaiian movements and, what I thought about it. So, I just tried to share with him, my knowledge of it. And, he slowly started getting things out of me. I was in it from the days back in, I guess, 92, my involvement in Halava Valley and stuff. And then I became part of Kalahui, and went through that whole movement back in the second Renaissance
And
or the
it
resurgence.
doesn't hurt that your wife is Donnie Campbell. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons. Right?
Yes. So I shared with him, what I thought, I believed in at the time, and I guess we also did like I don't know if you mentioned that, but we did peace circles right before he went up, and part of that was restorative justice training, and I. During that training, I had mentioned a lot about how I felt about being a Hawaiian in an occupied territory, and how I felt that my family played a large part in the resistance from the late 1800s till now. And I don't know. He said the muse. So I think that's the part I kind of played in that.
So I think both talking with Wally and then also connecting with Amy, who then, when we were looking at maybe putting something forth for a state convention, which happens in April for teachers in Hawaii, I had written something up, and she was like, "Oh, you gotta like educate yourself." And so she sent me to County Sci's website to really kind of open my mind about the current scholarship around the Hawaiian Kingdom. And so that, coupled with our restorative justice training, I'm very much like a relationship driven person, and so getting to Boston, I felt like there are a lot of people that I'm carrying with me as I go to this representative assembly, and that it's not just about me or even about us who are there, but it's about everybody back home who we're in charge of kind of representing. So we consulted with some folks back home who are in, I would say, the academic community, who are well versed in the current scholarship about how to kind of write an action item of what we'd like to see the National Association take up for our cause. And so they sent something back, and we kind of presented that to our state delegation, and they overwhelmingly supported it. So then it got put forth to the National Assembly a few days later. So it was actually supposed to be heard on July 3rd, and so we had all planned to speak on July 3rd, but for whatever circumstances, things got held up then, and so then it got pushed to the 4th, which was like, wow, okay, this was meant to be.
So what was the wording of for the audience, what was the wording of that new item proposal?
Oh yeah,
Just briefly.
do you remember it? Or do you want me to say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it was that the National Education Association will publish an article that documents the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom, the prolonged illegal occupation of the Hawaiian Kingdom by the United States, and then the harmful effects that occupation has had on the people in the land here.
That is profound. Just the
Yeah.
wording, that is great.
And it passed.
It did. It was
On July 4th.
on July 4th. It barely passed, actually. So,
You had good discussion on the floor?
no. Unfortunately. So there's a lot of politicking involved in getting an item passed. And so prior to actually it being heard on the floor, there's a lot of back work that we were learning, I'd say, as we were going through the process. So there are 4 what they're called ethnic minority caucuses that are within the existing structure of our union. It's the American Indian Caucus, the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus, the Black Caucus, and the Hispanic Caucus. So our first step was like, okay, these folks are going to be totally supportive of this item. So we went to those various caucuses and we got their support. And then we were learning about mic strategy. So there's something like 40 different microphones that exist on this floor because there's 8,000 something people who are attending this event and voting on these matters. So we kind of gathered folks who we thought might be supportive of the item and might want to speak to it. And there were just some really awesome folks from all over the country. Some folks who I saw this documentary on Netflix and I really want to speak up about it. There's a friend of ours who moved to Minnesota who was there, and she was like, I'm doing this for my family back home. I want to speak on it. So we kind of had a strategy developed, and then the day before, you can get kind of a printout of where you see all the states and how they're leaning on voting. And it looked like overwhelmingly the states were supporting it. So what that means sometimes is then you're not going to be able to debate it on the floor for long because people aren't going to get up and speak against it. So because I was the person whose name was on the writing, I was guaranteed a 2-minute slot to speak. But the morning of, I said to Uluhani, I said, I think I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to speak as a Hawaiian woman. And so let's share that time in case there's nobody else who gets up to speak against it. Because what's going to happen is the chair will just say, there's nobody who's against it, let's put it to a vote. And that's pretty much what happened. So we split our time, and I'll let you talk about sort of what you said. But after that, one person got up to speak against it, and his viewpoint was, well, if we open the doors to the idea that the U.S. is occupying the Hawaiian Kingdom, then what are we going to do for the American Indians, and what does that mean for our union? If we're saying that these people are representing a state, aren't part of a state.
Those are good questions.
They were great questions, and I felt like that's not my responsibility or our responsibility to argue that. It's more to present or encourage the presentation of facts to the national body. So he got up to speak, and then the chair was like, I only see people in support, so we're going to put it to a vote. So we were like, all right, we got this in the bag. And then the way in which they vote is orally. So all in favor say aye, everybody says aye, all against say nay. And then there was a resounding level of people against it, which was the first thing oh, maybe people are not as supportive of this as we thought. So the chair, again, she was like, that was really close. Let's do it again. And so we did it orally again. And at that point, people were starting to get worried. And it was too close for her to call again. And so she said, I'm going to ask you folks to stand. And so then they get a cohort of people who get up on the stage, and they kind of take a look at the different sections, and they see who has the majority. And so it was really close. It was not easy for her to call. She did not call it immediately. And then she announced, new business item 37 has, you have adopted new business item 37.
Oh. Did you get a big cheer?
From our section, we did, for sure. And that was, at that moment in time, I think the only section that mattered to us was just the faces of the people that we knew had really put in the effort into it, and then also wanting to make sure that the people back home kind of were aware.
Awesome. What did you say, Uluhani?
Let's see. For me, we actually had nightly halavai or talks before we went to sleep. And when we first spoke about Chris and what he has drafted, and we kind of had discussion about the kinds of debate we might have, he had approached me and he asked me to speak on it. And in the back of my head, I kind of had a feeling he was going to share his time with me. But like he said, it wasn't until we got closer where he said, after me, you're on. Then I started getting nervous because this was my second time as a delegate. Never spoke on a state level. And here I am speaking in front of our national president and vice president. And I immediately went to Pule, and every night I kind of looked over, and then of course I called out to my kupuna, and after I did that, I just felt the piece. And like I explained a little bit earlier with you, the butterflies went away, and I knew it was Vakupono to just speak from my na'au. And even though I had wrote something, and I didn't get to say all of it, of course, because they give you 2 minutes, to speak.
Yeah.
And basically, how I started was, of course, introducing myself in Hawaiian. And if I could have done the whole speech in Hawaiian, I probably would have chose to do that. And what hit me the most to get out to the audience was to talk about my name. And one of my middle names is Kaulana Napua. And that, that song was a song written shortly after our kingdom was illegally overthrown by
Those guys.
Yeah, and it was just so powerful because I usually go by Uluhani, which is another family name. And this was the first time I really had a chance to talk about Kaulana Napua. And I just felt that fire burning within me. And prior to that, I had searched for my great grandparents' signature on the annexation. And I just started, just reading a bunch of stuff. And, my tutu, she was a very strong wahine. And, being her namesake, I knew I had it within me. And having such a short time to share, I wasn't even thinking about, the reaction of the audience. I just knew I had the presence of Keokua, my kupuna there with me. And I was there, like Chris said, not just representing myself, my state, but I was representing, everybody back home who couldn't be there. And it was such an opportunity that I'm forever blessed and grateful for. And just within those few minutes, it was just an experience. I mean, definitely life-changing, being able to speak in front. And, like he said, we weren't sure, what kind of discussion we're going to have. And in the past, we've had discussion on the floor that go on 3 hours, 2 hours. And, we're thinking, like, what kind of questions are they going to ask us? Some of them aren't even aware of the illegal overthrow, and we decided, this isn't a debate whether it was illegal or not. That's a done deal. And the occupation, we don't want to debate whether, the U.S. has been occupying Hawaii. And we said, no, we want to bring about awareness and education. We'll stick to the plan, and we're not going to get carried away with what we're here, trying to do. So that was kind of my part, is just stand up, speak from my na'au, and just, let it unfold from there.
I'm going to ask what happened after to you guys, all of you, because I suspect something happened after. And I'm going to say that because I read it. I read the article. It appeared on Facebook, like everybody's like news area. And I thought it was fabulous. I remember sending it to Keanu. And I said, wow, did you see this? This is cool. And he said, yeah, I already saw that. I said, okay, well, coming late to me, but I thought it was a marker. We've been trying to keep track of all of the different things that happen as time goes by. What kind of markers can we point to that tell us a change is being made? When there you were. And it wasn't even here in Hawaii. And it was like really good because, man, these guys are in another country.
Yes.
Promoting our history. And even though it was a tight little struggle there, you persevere. And so from my point of view, it was good. What happened to you guys after?
So it's actually, I think not until you just started speaking that I remembered right afterwards. I think I went back to my seat and I took the paper that has all the new business items that are going up to the floor that we can kind of take a look at and take notes on and everything. And so I opened it up to the page that NBI 37, which was the one that we had written, that page, and then I wrote past, and then I underlined it, and then I took a picture of it and I immediately sent it to Wally and to my other friend Bella. And I can remember my hands were shaking as I wrote it, and I think for me, it was about connection, I think, and being connected to something that has existed for many years prior to me being here, and will probably continue to exist, which is the struggle for justice. So I think for me, it was about feeling humbled and like proud to be a part of it and to share it with other folks who were important to me. And then I did not plan for it becoming big news back here. Yeah, it was like, I'll share it with my friends and we'll celebrate it. And then once they write the article, then we'll like try and disseminate it to schools and colleagues. But I did not expect that it would get the amount of recognition here.
What did you tell him, Wally?
This caught me off guard because I know he was going to go to the convention, and it was like we said, it was like right after those restorative justice training that we had. So I guess he was in full-on Ku'e mode when he went to the States, and then after that he went to Chicago, or Washington,
Jersey.
or Jersey, and did some more peace circles over there. But when I seen it, I was thinking, wow. I mean, this is something, on a national government. Was it federal or is that federal?
That's
That's
National Convention, yeah.
No, but what is that? NEA? Is that federal?
National Education Association.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking, okay, now that's ammunition now, for us over here to be used, and. Then I seen it. My son was showing me on social media that it was, kind of going. I seen Keanu; he was mentioning it, and then that other person that you said you went to that workshop. Anyway, they were mentioning about what he had done, and then I was telling Chris,
You're the man.
you're the man now.
What's your take, little honey?
I think for me, I forgot to mention that, being spiritual, I always ask for confirmations. And like Chris mentioned, we were actually supposed to go to the floor on July 3rd. And for whatever reason, divine intervention, we went on July 4th. And being in Boston, one of the naval ships was the USS Boston.
Yeah, that's right.
During that time.
Yeah.
And I said, how cool is that? We could have been in DC or Minnesota or anywhere, but we were in Boston, and that was the naval ship, the USS Boston. So, after just kind of having those two things, that also brought peace to me. But after it got passed, like he said, it was just, kind of just had to take that moment to just realize what had happened. And, I just knew I had to speak on it. I wasn't really thinking about the result. And, it wasn't until after where, our indigenous cousins were coming up and hugging. And, I just heard that soft whisper, okay, now the work is really beginning. Mm-hmm. There's so much more we got to get done. Yeah. And like I mentioned to Chris, we needed to set that kahua, that foundation, in order to move forward. And bringing about awareness and education, to our educators is so huge, to get our keiki educated on the topic. And for me, I just automatically knew, okay, there's more work to be done. And when I went back home to Molokai, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who found out or what. But then seeing some of our kupuna in the community and having them come up to me and just hug me and cry and just say, oh, I seen a little video of you speaking. And I said, oh my gosh, Auntie, like, oh, and they're just so proud. And just to feel their mana. And of course, I had to go to my tutu's grave and just spend some time there reflecting. And, now we're here with Dr. Sai. And, I'm excited for the journey,
One of the other things I think is important to note is like very shortly after it got passed, the next question was like, well, who's going to write the article? And so I just read this quote, and I'm not sure who said it. It was in an article that I was reading. Nothing nothing about us without us is for us. And that has kind of like continued to ring true for me, that if we're going to do justice to kind of laying out the facts, it should be folks who are really well versed in the facts, who are doing the writing, not necessarily asking the NEA to write it. So while we were there, you know, I went to go speak with the head of the Center for Social Justice under NEA, and I said, you know, how do we ensure that like our people are the ones to write it, and that it's not coming from somebody who's just like doing a Google search? And so he said, well, you want to get on top of it, and you want to email us shortly after you get back about who can write it and how we contact them and everything. So we connected with Amy, who was like, I know people who will definitely be able to write this. And so then she connected with Keanu Sai, and I think now you are going to be one of the folks who is responsible for putting forth that information on the national stage. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was contacted by Amy, and going back and forth, and then she was concerned whether or not I have time for it. And I told her, you know what, I'll make time because this is important. And for me, it was an opportunity to educate people at another level, also a broader level. And I told her, I can assure you that this documentation that was in that new business item number 37, to document the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy, the illegal and prolonged occupation of the Hawaiian kingdom, and the harmful effects, will be utilizing facts that are not disputable, right? And it'll begin to lay out that process, and I assured her I will ensure that. So she writes back, great, can you do it? Yeah, I'll do it, not a problem. So I was supposed to have finished it today, right? I was supposed to finish it, but I'm involved with international proceedings, which we talked about earlier. And these are hearings that are going to come up in January. So these proceedings have come to the point of it is now going to begin. And we just got word yesterday. So I need to contact Amy. Give me another week. It'll get done. Not a problem.
A couple of things I wanted to ask you, because we have this book here, whether or not you would comment on this and the content of it.
Okay.
And then after that, I actually wanted to get back to the stuff that you're not speaking too much about because we're kind of limited in time. So this first, and then tell us what's happening in January.
Okay, so the first thing, so let me share what happened to me when I received word from what happened in Boston. So there's this person, he's an administrator, Native Hawaiian Student Services at the University of Hawaii, Dr. Willie Kawai. Okay, so we're sitting down, I think we're having lunch. He said, hey, you saw this. he saw it was being spread through the Facebook of Hawaii State Teachers Association. So he goes, check this out. So I go, I was like, what? Then I kind of opened up the picture, like, hey, there's Amy. I recognize Amy.
Yeah.
And I was like, I looked at him, I went, Willie, this is big. Because it's education. And Willie is not only an administrator, but he's an academic. And his doctoral dissertation, which I sat on, I was one of his doctoral committee members. His was on Hawaiian nationality, citizenship, from the 18th century to the present. And he addresses occupation, its effect on nationality, and so forth. So it was so refreshing to see that this is high school level. You know, this is before they enter into college. And it was awesome. So I called Amy because I didn't know you folks, so I couldn't contact you. So I called her. I said, Amy, congratulations to you and everyone who was a part of it. And I said, awesome, great job. Because to me, it reflected a sense of normalization. We are normalizing the conversation. When we say Hawaii's occupied, we're not yelling it. We're just saying Hawaii's occupied. It's speaking to it as a matter of fact. The illegal overthrow, as a matter of fact, it's not that we've coined the word illegal. No, the United States Congress said it was illegal in 1993, and so did President Cleveland say it was illegal in 1893. So they said it, not us. But we're now able, I believe, to now bring out the voices of our kupuna of that time and make it relevant today. But as we bring it out, as Ulahane mentioned so rightly and so correctly, the hard work now is with us to continue where really they left off. And we're now moving down that path of national consciousness. National consciousness of a country, not of a group, not of a particular people, but of a country that has many people in it. Yeah. And to make mention of this, I was sharing with you folks earlier. Our approach,
hold it up, yeah.
so our approach on addressing what took place here was there was an illegal overthrow of our government, not the country. There is an illegal occupation that has taken place since then. But why is it that we didn't know about it? You know, why is it that it's not part of our history? And the reason is denationalization. So if you read the newspapers of that era, you know, both the English and the Hawaii newspapers, everyone knew that Hawaii was still independent. There was no treaty. Okay? The Maui News actually specifically had a story in there on this guy named Thomas Clark in Wailuku who was running for a territorial senator. And Thomas Clark was saying, we're still independent. There is no treaty. Now that's 2 years after so-called annexation. So they understood what was going on in light of the American presence through military being built up here. But how is it that we didn't, what Thomas knew did not pass on to us? And that's when we start to realize, and this is done through academic research done at the university level, that there was a program of denationalization, and that's what this is.
Read that title.
So 1906, it says Program for Patriotic Exercises in the Public Schools, Territory of Hawaii, adopted by the Department of Public Instruction. And everything in this program is everything about the American flag. When you stand in front of the, let me read to you. Okay. And you can only speak English. If you speak Hawaiian, which is the national language, like speaking French in France or Spanish in Spain, if you speak Hawaiian, you get beaten. And these are the stories that our kupuna tell us. And you have to speak English, right? So here is a formation and salute to the flag, Program for Patriotic Exercises. So it says here, the children at a given signal by the principal or teacher. Now keep in mind, this is my tutu's generation, okay? The children at a given signal by the principal or teacher in charge file past the flag, saluting in correct military manner. The boys to the right and the girls to the left, entering and taking their positions in the school. The flag bearers enter last and take their positions right and left of the principal, remaining in that position during the salutation, where they say in unison, we give our heads and our hearts to God and our country, one language, one flag. Now that is profound. Now, there was a newspaper, magazine called Harper's Weekly in 1907 that did a story on it. They actually sent a reporter to Hawaii to do a story on this. And they visited Ka'iolani Public School, Ka'ahumanu Public School, and Honolulu High School before the name was changed to President William McKinley High School. And that portion that I read out of the program was actually done at Ka'iolani Public School, 714 school children, grades 1 through 6, and this is them standing at attention, saluting the flag, and yelling out, one language, one country, one flag. So it's an issue that we have to address. My approach on this, and now others have seen this approach, we are not reacting to this brainwashing. We are responding to it. So what we're doing is we are raising the level of national consciousness, bringing back what was there before 1906 and the standards that were there. And that's when a responsibility and a burden is placed upon us as teachers to now take what 124 years has created and somehow raise the level of national consciousness without being political, without being biased. Yeah, we have to teach it correctly, right? And yeah, so with that, I salute you folks, to what you folks did. It takes it to the next level. And for myself, I mean, I'm honored to have been asked to document this for the NEA, and we're going to get others to see this, because everyone is really ignorant of our history. And once you bring it to their attention, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it speaks for itself, but it naturally gets people into asking, well, what now? So those questions that were posed, well, what about the other situations that America may have been involved with whoever? Well, the question is, what's going to happen now? And this only encourages more research, more scholarship, more engagement. And this is where it begins to move beyond normalization, but now into carrying it out. And how do you teach it? So I teach a graduate course, commitment school teachers. 7 of them are in a cohort. And they're getting their master's degree in education, and one of the classes that is required in this coursework is my class, Introduction to the Hawaiian State, the Hawaiian Kingdom. Just this past week, they clearly see this has to be taught, right? And we're naturally moving now into pedagogy. How do you teach it? Not necessarily what do you teach, but how do you teach it? And at what level do you teach it? How you teach it? So you don't teach this, which would be taught at a high school level, at the intermediate level. So some of the teachers who are grad students in this class range from high school, intermediate, elementary. And their final paper is pedagogy. How will you teach this at your level?
Awesome.
So we're starting to get that conversation going, and they're all excited about that. So this is a collaborative thing, yeah. And it's not based on race, culture. It's based on kuleana. One thing that I really believe in is I'm into maximizing kuleana. I'm into maximizing responsibility. If you're going to be something, just be better at it. So as we are teachers, just be better at it.
It's good you raised that, because I was going to ask them too, because they teach at the elementary level, how you might do that. Sorry, what were you
No.
going to say?
Exactly what you said. Exactly what you said.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Because there's some information in, well, are you guys using that Mauna Kea curriculum? Or are you just creating your own curriculum? What's the process going on there?
So my co-teacher and I have purchased the curriculum, and I think we've used a couple segments of the video, but the textbook that accompanies the DVD, I think, is we have to sit down if we're going to utilize it and really sift through like how to make it understandable for 6th grade students who we work with. But like we had the opportunity to take our students to the palace in September for the celebration of the Queen's birthday, and so we had the opportunity to teach them about the Ku'e petitions. And so I think largely because there's so many people who have done work prior to the current state, we have access to resources to be able to tap into to teach them about things that many people are still, I think, really unaware of.
I would recommend that, and I'll get this to you folks, the program for patriotic exercises. So if we take a look at this is what they use to denationalize children, grades 1 through 8. And if you weren't being a good American, you weren't allowed to go to high school. And that was stated in the Harper's Weekly magazine. The principal of Honolulu High School said that. That's why a lot of people in Hawaii, after 8th grade, like my grandfather, After 8th grade, they went to work. That's when they started working. They never went to high school. That's how it was back then. Very different today. Today, high school is required. You got to go to high school. Back then, if you weren't speaking English good enough, you weren't accepted. You had to go into the workforce. So this was at the grade 1 through 6. This is what was used. So in order to respond to this and not react to it, it's good to actually go over this and see what they used. And what they have is formation and salute to the flag. Okay. They have morning prayer, patriotic songs, Star Spangled Banner, the red, white, and blue, Yankee Doodle, all American, right? Patriotic topics for the day. They talk about slaves. They talk about, all American. Special anniversary dates. Everything is American. McKinley, Daniel Webster, slavery abolished, Lincoln, American flag made. You can actually just go back and replace it with Hawaii's songs, Hawaii's stories. That would be the first step. And what it does is for teachers now to engage this information, it gets them to think how to teach it, but at least use this as the template.
Yes.
We're just reversing it.
Yeah.
So it gets us to, well, what were the songs that people knew back then? The songs of Hawaii, share that with the children. And if this was to instill, or as they use, inculcate, that's the term they use, which is repetition through brainwashing. That's inculcate. So if they were inculcating American national consciousness, then let's just respond to that and let's raise the level of Hawaii's national consciousness, not the native consciousness. Hawaii's national consciousness, which included everyone here, right? And this will be a good step. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
Because, hey, why
a
reinvent
template.
the wheel? Just revamp it.
So part of what what we're fortunate of at our school is we have a very forward-thinking principal, Derek Minakami, and he has given us the opportunity to have a pilot program at our school, which is really looking at place-based, project-based learning for our students. And most of them are Hawaiian. They identify as Hawaiian. And so over the summer, when my co-teacher and I had the opportunity to sit down and actually look at planning, we realized how fortunate we were to have Wally on campus as a cultural practitioner. So we asked him if he would be open to being involved in the planning of this curriculum with us. And so he has done some of the things that you're talking about, which is to, I think, raise the level of awareness of our students about the loss of Hawaiian culture and denationalization, and to kind of restore some of that to them. So I don't know if you want to talk.
Well, so now in the morning they do the raising of the flag, and they do the Pledge of Allegiance, yeah. And then from there they go out onto the field that overlooks Kaneohe, and they do a sunrise oli, a greeting of the sun. And in the oli it talks about all the old place names of the area that they come from, so that brings back the names that are not used anymore. And so that brings life to our kupuna and the names that were once used in that area. And then they do a little stretching exercises after that in Hawaiian. And so I kind of mentioned to them as we were teaching them, about, I asked them to raise their hand who was, Hawaiian, and, who was born here, And so, even if they're born here, they're from here, right? So they're kama'aina now that they're born here. And so they have a place in Hawaii. So, it doesn't really have to do, like we were saying, with ethnicity. It's because you have a place of belonging here. So you should have a say in what what goes on from now. So those are, I like that. Those are steps that we can take to.
And the Oli has brought folks to tears, which I think just what like we can say to them, you don't understand how important it is for you to be in a DOE school doing an Oli in the morning. And they're like, oh, whatever, it's our teachers. We're like sick of hearing them tell us this. And then when they go out into the community and they see the response from some folks, I think it has a whole nother level of depth for them about the significance of having access to being able to retell their story at this day and age.
Well, I do recall that on September 3rd at Yolani Palace, and a number of your students were there and their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And they did an Oli for us. And Meliana Meyer, who was, I guess, had some control over the other program that was going on simultaneously, asked them to come and share. It was really, really good. It was really nice. It kind of surprised us all because we weren't expecting anything, but the idea of doing some kind of ceremonial stuff before the laying out of those signs, those names, those people, before we put them out for the Queen to see from her room. Mm-hmm. It was appropriate for somebody to do that. And we didn't know who was going to do it, and there you were. So that was really, really good. Awesome.
Yeah, special.
The keiki, yeah.
Yeah.
The Keiki did it.
Keiki stepped it up.
Yeah.
Unexpected, but welcome. It was really good.
For me, I teach the little babies, and I really focus on trying to plant that hua, that seed of aloha aina, and also learning about the ali'i. So we just had Lali Li'u, where our Papahanā Kaiapuni from Punana to college, we come together and we celebrate, our queen. And with the babies, we can learn a lot about our ali'i through mele and stories, and just having them really connect and have that love for the aina. And I think it's important for them to start off at that level. But I'm excited to connect with our other teachers on Molokai. We have 1 middle, 1 high school, and 4 elementaries. And I would love to go back home and start sharing the curriculum, and if I can have our island on board with educating our keiki and our even our community, inviting Kianusai back to our island and have different workshops. I think that would be awesome.
It's that normalizing process you were talking about, so that people just kind of expect. Actually, it sounds like transition. When you guys are talking about it, you're in this system and you recognize it, and then slowly moving people over because there's this other system that exists simultaneously, practicing.
Mm-hmm.
So, final thoughts, because we're kind of running out of time. What did you guys learn? What's the thing that you walked away with after that convention?
I guess that for me, I felt, again, humbled to be a part of, to me, it really is like the reason why I get up in the morning. It's just, I'm motivated to try and create a more just society. And so being able to be a part of that here in Hawaii, even with the small amount of time that I've lived here, was humbling, I'd say, for me. So that was my takeaway, is just a deep sense of gratitude for those who have come before that have really helped to enlighten me so that I could be a part of it.
I'm going to assume that also means there's a commitment to do more.
For sure.
You can get high doing this stuff. I mean, seriously, it's so fun and so good. You just want to do more, kind of expand,
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, I feel, of course, very blessed and honored to be a part of our process. And just going back to Kuleana, being up there, being a part of everything, just made me realize that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be and doing what I am born to do, sorry. But I'm excited for the future work and journey. We know there's a lot more to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So
my sense is that the three of you, you're like right on the edge, which is all good. I think Keanu already went over the edge. He's on the other side.
I'm swimming, I gotta come back. Come on, jump in.
It's like kind of
He's
like
redefining the
hurry up.
edge, I think.
So his thinking probably is like, hurry up. But we're grateful for you and for having you guys here today. And we should do this again. Because my guess is that people who watch these kinds of programs don't have access to information. Not this stuff. I mean, they can read maybe articles that come out, but we're not real people in an article. But we are real people in front of a camera because they catch us in all our ugly poses. But yeah, who cares? So we can get real here. And then I think we're going to videotape some more later on with, that's for the guys that are watching, we're going to videotape later on with Keanu and get a bit more information about what's coming down in January because it's pretty exciting.
Yes.
And I'd like to invite you guys to be part of that discussion as well.
Awesome.
What about it? 5 guys. I mean, 3 guys and 2 women.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you all for coming.
Mahalo.
And thank
Mahalo.
you to the watching audience for paying attention to us for like 57 minutes or whatever it is. It was awesome having you. And aloha. This is Lynette Cruz, Keanu Sai, Uluhani, Chris, Wally for Issues That Matter.